of us have been in this sewing business for a while, and there are days you feel like the machine and or the equipment or the tools we're working with are just refusing to be our friends. They're refusing to be cooperative. I mean, those days you can imagine you're trying, especially those days when you're trying to rush up a job. If you have been there, you understand this. I mean, it's the day you are rushing that your machine will just choose to misbehave. I don't think I'm the only one on this table. I think there's so many on this table. That day is the day your machine will be acting up. Have you ever been there? Has it happened to you before? Today I'm going through some mistakes, some sewing mistakes that can really frustrate you. And maybe the things you can do to avoid them, or what to look out for or watch out for to avoid these problems in our sewing business. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever had sewing problems? And have you ever gotten to the middle of a project and you feel like, oh goodness, this thing cannot work, or you feel like crying or just stopping it or throwing it out altogether, or stop, or just to stop working on that particular project? And most especially these days where many of us are learning online, many of us are learning on free online classes or even paid for online classes, and the tutor is teaching you a part of the whole. Probably you're not getting some details. No, let's be realistic. Not everything can be taught sometimes when you're not in a physical class. There are some things you won't get. If you've been in an online class before, probably that's where you're learning your sewing. Ordinarily, I know that there are some certain things that don't come clear. And maybe because you don't have the luxury of asking the tutor, I mean, how do I go about this? How do my machine is faulty? Some little things like that. I think this teaching, this video will help you a lot if you can just wait through it, watch it carefully, and take note of everything that I'm going to talk to you about. There are things you need. You know, I mean, you want to repeat some things that you've seen. I mean, and you start the work, and it starts looking like, excuse me, this doesn't look like what this person taught me. Sometimes it's not really the person that's the issue, it's the way you grabbed it, or probably you lost something vital in the middle of it, or the part that wasn't shown. You know, either the work that probably went on for 1 hour was shortened into a short clip for you, and some parts went off and you didn't get them, and they're actually getting you more confused. This video will surely help you. If I have a big question to ask you as a sewer, the first question I will ask you is, has your sewing machine ever refused to work the day you needed it the most? Because that's happened to me. Sometimes it's not like it's refusing to work outrightly. It's just refusing to work well. Is that day that you need it the most, that it's skipping threads, it's cutting thread, it's just doing something that you feel like, my jazz, this thing is not normal, it's not regular. It's the people of the world or the village people that are on top of this machine making it act funny. That's our Niger way. Where if you're not Nigerian, you don't understand that line. So if you've been self-taught, well, and you have some issues, here you don't stop learning. I'm still learning, you are still learning. So we still have a lot to grab and a long time to start learning. As long as we're all here, we don't stop learning. The first thing is, if you have watched any of my videos before, or if you've probably been in my class as a student, I don't stop saying this. I tell people that a major problem is using the wrong needle. You see, we had a student who was who grew to be an instructor, and they named him Mr. Change Your Needle, because he understood that the first thing he will tell you is check your needle size. When the thread is skipping, when your thread is cutting, when your fabric is acting, when you're sewing and everything and just cutting like that, the first solution is, it could be the wrong needle for wrong needle size or the wrong needle type. There are different kinds of needles, there are different types of needles. I really can't, I feel like I should hammer this all the time to everybody sewing. The major problem has to do with, let me say the major problem. One of the major problems when your thread is cutting is the needle. There are different needle sizes, there are different needle types, there are different needle brands. So these things come like, you don't just say, if I say change your needle and you told me, I've changed it, I'll ask you, did you change, which size were you using before you change to another size? And sometimes you don't even know. Or I've seen people who just go to the market and just purchase needle. There are different brands. They have, for example, in Nigeria, we have Orange, we have Violin, we have Butterfly, we have MH. I'm not sure if we have that, but we have quite a number of needles. Now when you have these needles, I'll always advise, buy all the sizes you can see. Buy 14, the common sizes we have, 14, 16, 18. Buy the 3 sizes in the Nigerian market. In your other country, if you're in another country and you're exposed to other sizes, get the sizes that are available. Okay, there are some stores you go to, mostly outside Nigeria, where you have instructions for the best needle size or type for this particular fabric. But we don't have that in the country where I come from. So if you're in Nigeria, if you're in Nigeria, for example, and you go to the market, what you do is, I advise have all the needle sizes, have various brands. I've realized that when I'm working with a violin 16, a butterfly 16, and an orange 16, the three gives me different results. So I can't say 16 is 16. I've seen that the brands actually have different ways or different sizes or something, maybe the thickness or the needle eye or somehow. I know the needle eye has a lot to do with the thread. If the thread is bulky and the needle eye is tiny, it will be cutting. You may not know the needle eye is tiny a bit. And if the needle eye is sometimes that's what makes the thread cut. It starts gathering length. Then as you're sewing, the thread starts cutting and you're getting tired. It's 16 of a butterfly. I'm not saying this is way, but sometimes the 16 of another brand and the 16 of a different brand may have different needle eye sizes. So this could be a reason. So when I say change your needle, I'm not talking about I've just changed. I'm asking you to try another brand of the same size, because on fabrics what they want is a size 14. And if you use a 16 with them, they might still keep cutting your thread. So watch out for all this. And your machine has different. We have HA, we have DB, we have DP. DP, I don't advise you use DP because I've seen that it causes more harm than good for ordinary sewing. I think it works more with fake fabrics, leather. That's the best of my personal knowledge. If you have a different opinion, it's fine if it works for you. And I've seen that if you use this regular tabletop machine, it could actually start affecting the fit dog because it's thicker than the regular HA and DBs. HA is the best for tabletop machines, while DB is this one that is suitable for industrial sewing machines. I mean DB, B for ball. P is the other one. DP is the one, the D and the P is for P for pencil. So I recommend DB and HA. DB works for tabletop if you know how to handle, how to turn the flat side to face the short hole side. Look for that and know how to do that. We actually take all our students through this during the beginner classes, either online or physical classes. So what does the wrong needle type does for you? It's called skip stitches. You know when you're trying to skipping. Yeah, when your son is like he's skipping, and this one is so just jump like this, start having gaps. Then of course it breaks. When the needle starts breaking, it's sometimes means that the fabric is too strong for that needle type. So that's another one. Then sometimes it creates knots at the bottom of the fabric, like it starts knotting up, start getting locked up at the bottom. It's not sewing well up, it's not sewing well down. You see, there's something we call, if the problem is under, when you're sewing the fabric and the problem is the threading here is being affected, we will say the problem is up. Look at the tension area. Do you have it well threaded? And the problem is on the upper part, check the bobbin, check the under of your machine. That's where the problem is. So know about needle sizes, know the needle that is available in your market, know the one to buy, and know the one that is suitable for the fabric. If it doesn't come with instructions, try different needle types. And 14 actually works well for me most of the time, except when I'm sewing very strong fabrics. So have all the needle types, have all the sizes. If possible, have as many brands as you can see in your local market. Another problem that causes issues is when you don't change your needle all the time. You keep on using the same needle 1 week, 2 weeks. In fact, if you sew a whole day, you've been sewing different kinds of fabrics. If you sew laces, especially these laces that have stones and beads, by the time you're done, normally it breaks needles, I know. But if you successfully get done with that kind of project, change your needle. Don't just use that needle to sew another cloth. Because if you use a needle for a very strong fabric, there's a possibility the tip of the needle it could be broken and you will not know. And when you start sewing another cloth, they start puckering, and they start pulling out the thread and they could damage the fabric. So don't use the same needle for so long. How much is needle? Please change your needle if possible daily. If not daily, 2 or 3 days. They should change your needle regularly. I like changing my needle with every new project I want to work with because I don't want to get into the middle of the project, especially when I'm working with silks, cotton, lycra, soft and delicate fabrics, organza, satin. I rather use a new clean needle to also the edges, the tip is still very sharp. It doesn't stress me out. Of course, those fabrics, silk, especially silk, satin, when the thread pulls out, honestly, you don't like what it does to the fabric. So if you, as much as you can, change your needle regularly. Of course, repeating the needle, what happens is it doesn't come out as sharp. It's not as sharp as it used to be. It gets blunt, and blunt needles, what does it do? Of course, it pulls out your fabric or just making one funny sound on the fabric. change the needle as much as you can daily. Or if you're probably working on more on a project, for you're doing two projects a day and you feel that first thing you did is hard, then use another needle for a new project. Don't stay on one needle for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Some of us use it for one needle for a whole week. Please, cheap needles can do a lot of harm to your fabrics and they ruin your projects if care is not taken. Try sharp new needle every time you want to start a new project is better. And also check the needle tip. Sometimes new needles can be broken. Yes, I've had bringing on new needles from the pack and you start sewing and you start and discover it's puckering, then that means the tip is broken. Just discard and pick a new one. Needles are affordable, they're quite cheap. Don't be stingy with needles on your sewing machine. What could cause another issue? I call it tension problem. There's a rhyme I normally teach my students. I call it righty tighty, lefty loosey. The tension is that place where you have numbers on the regular tabletop machine, not the computerized one, where you have to turn it this way. The needle passes through the tension. It's on every machine. Every machine has tension. Some are obvious, some are hidden in some corners, but you have this number where you have sometimes you have 0 to 9. They're about 6. I think mine is 0 to 9 actually. So you turn and turn and turn. Now, when the tension is bad and you're sewing and it's either skipping up or skipping down, if it's skipping down, it could be the tension. Always check your tension, the tension of your machine. If you're using a machine that has a tension in the front part of the machine, what you can do is drop a little bit of sewing machine oil, lubricate it so that the lint in it can just go out of the threads, blow air into it, let the jets blow out. Tension issues can be frustrating, I am telling you. And the problem is if you turn the tension wrongly and the skipping, or I call it bird's eye, where you start knotting up at the bottom. When it gets worse, to get the right one is difficult. So don't turn your tension first. Be sure it's not a thread issue. Be sure it's not a needle issue. Be sure it's not a threading issue before you start turning your tension on your sewing machine and adjusting it back and forth. It will cause more issues for you. So ensure the tension is right. Once you get the tension right, you know where the number is. I usually tell the students that if you know where your tension is, so if possible, you're going to snap it. So that if you come back tomorrow and somebody has maybe tampered with it, you can just set it back to that number that you're good at using. And threads can determine tension. Yeah, because if the thread is very thin and it passes through the tension easily, if you use a thicker thread, passing through that tension may not be as the same when you're using a thinner thread. So you might need to just loosen it up a little bit to allow the thicker thread pass through more easily. It's like if you've ever tried sewing with 2 colors of thread or 3 colors of thread, it has to be thin and threads actually, and the needle size has to be the one with the big eye. For some decorative effects, you might have to loosen up your tension as well. And when you loosen it up before you sew the main fabric, pick a scrap, sew on a scrap. Be sure that the threading is not cutting, the threads are moving fine before you start your decorative work with multiple threads project. I think I'll do a video on that, working with multiple threads to create design effect on your garment when working. Don't press as you sew. I don't know how to relate with you. I'm a fan of ironing. I iron well. I believe when you iron well, when your projects come out, they are clean, they are crisp, looking neat and flat. Iron everything. You want to finish your work and you want to see your work and say, "Nami Mikam." That means I'm the one that did this job. So do your best. I don't know how people tell me it's stressful to get up and iron. It's the fun of sewing. You looking at your work and enjoying the glide as it is going on. So get used to ironing your seams. Every time you join a seam together, you join 2 fabrics together, open the seam, iron with steam, turn it back, iron, fold it together and iron. Allow steam to go in so that every traces of bulk will be removed from the product you are working on. Get used to ironing as a sewing student, as a fashion designer. Pressing doesn't seem easy. Yeah, let me say it's not as easy as it looks or as it sounds. It's fun, but you will like the outcome. The outcome is always fantastic when you get used to it. Get used to it as you're doing your project. The finishing is different when you iron well. When I see a well-ironed cloth, I know, okay, this cloth was well-ironed. When I see the one that wasn't well-ironed, honestly, they don't look attractive to me. Maybe because I love good ironing and flat seams. So get used to that. Seam ironing every time is part of what will not give you issues when you start sewing or when you're finishing or when you're presenting your clothes to your clients when you're done with it. Another issue that you may have with the inner with your sewing work is customers complaining of this finishing not so good, the inner seam looking funny, and maybe you don't have an overlocking machine and you feel, "Oh, that's why I didn't." If you don't have an overlocking machine, there are ways around it. One is you can use you can use pinking shears to cut, and pinking shears cannot work for all fabrics. It's probably fabrics that when you cut them, they are not fraying anymore. And car fabrics, cotton, fake fabrics can work with this. Otherwise, you can use, if you have a zigzag machine, use a zigzag stitches to finish the raw edge so that the inseams are fantastic, they're looking good. Then three is closing the seams with bias. This works on not all projects. Be careful so I don't have too much bulk showing the fabric in the project. Be certain that the using bias to finish the inseams, that it will still work, and by the time you fold your project you're done, it's not creating bulk, it's not making it look bulky. It works on certain types of trousers, certain types of dresses and skirts, but the material must be thick enough to accommodate your bias closing or bias finishing on raw edges. That is totally unprofessional to finish your job and to have raw edges or threads flying around the fabric or the garments. It's absolutely unprofessional. So as much as you can in every way, ensure your projects are well finished. They're well finished and the inside is as neat as the outside. I mean, I have clients when you give them the clothes, the first thing they do is to turn the clothes inside out to check if the seams are well finished. So let me ask you this question. Have you ever been a victim of what I ordered versus what I got? At times, it's not the tailor. Sometimes it's a choice of fabric. I've had to say this to some vendors many times who sell clothes. Like, you cannot see a style on someone and you want the exact thing, but with a cheaper fabric or with a fabric that doesn't match that style. Allow us tailors, I mean, spare us now, cut us some slack. Please, when you're choosing fabrics, make sure you ask your designer, is this fabric suitable? And if you're comfortable enough, allow them buy the fabric they think is okay. Although sometimes, yeah, I know it goes wrong, but I'm just saying for the times you don't want to go wrong, or the times it's not the designer's fault, wrong choice of fabric will give you a bad choice, a badly finished project, I mean. So if you're one of the work things and part of the things you know as a designer is choosing the right fabric for the right project. Know that this should be able to work for this, or this may not work for this. Doesn't mean that because that thing was done with chiffon, then cotton will give you the same outcome. No, the flow is different, the fabric texture is different, the fabric feel is always different. Watch out for that in all your sewing projects as well. Last note, I'd like to talk about body measurements, and a major problem happens when you have to use the wrong measurement, or when your client is the one that sends in the measurement and they got it from the tailors. Because I've seen tailors give clients wrong measurements when they ask, thinking that someone is going to steal their customer away from them, that idea. So if you have, if someone they haven't met me before and they want me to sew for them, I ask for the measurement. If I see the measurement is looking funny, I ask them for the size they are wearing or they buy in stores. Either don't say size 14. Do you buy a UK size 14? Or US size 14 or Euro size 14, I mean 40, whatever. Be sure you are sure of what they are saying before you conclude or assume. These countries they all have different sizing patterns. Ensure the measurement is right, and when you're measuring as well, know how to measure correctly. I have a video somewhere where I taught about measurements and how to measure your clients rightly and how to measure yourself too rightly. So ensure the measurement is correct. Measure rightly, teach them how to measure. If you don't know how to measure, you can send them. If I have a short video on that, send someone to know how to measure themselves and send the right measurement to you. Because if you work with the wrong measurement, you cannot get the right result. I mean, if I don't measure you, you send some measurement to me and you complain, I always tell you I worked with what you sent, not what I measured. When it's my fault, I mean, if you're good at what you do, you hardly have issues with measurement, except you measure with the wrong tape rule and you sew with the wrong tape rule, which happens because the tape rule could have different size. Maybe one is stretched out or one shrunk a little, and that could be another problem as well. So work with the right measurement. If you're working with patterns, ensure your divisions are accurate. They are accurately done. Don't divide by head. Be sure you know what you're dividing by 4 or dividing by 2 or whatever, however you are dividing. So till I'm back some other time, I remain at the Banjo, the principal instructor of Ibadan City Fashion College. If you're looking for the best fashion school in town, I'll tell you that's the best fashion school you can be, where you're taught not just the art of sewing, but the art of running the business, putting yourself on a global platform and doing more for yourself. I didn't start out to be a fashion designer, but look at where I am today. So I'm always willing to give students a lot of things I've learned along the way, the journey, what I've learned, and how I got to where I am, how I started from zero to this point today. So let's see some other time. Follow me on my social media handles and send me an email, DM, drop a comment for any other questions you might have.